Hey there, y'all, and welcome to the kitchen. We are in my new kitchen upstairs. My remodel has been completed, and I'm excited to do a full episode. This is actually Thanksgiving for the staff that helps me do Mama Witten's kitchen every week. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this meal today. As always, this is going to be a shortcut Thanksgiving. We're going to be able to do this in under an hour, and I'm going to show you how. So we always have a shortcut few things that we have gotten from the grocery store, and today is no different. That is always across the board what I'm looking for a shortcut meal. We got to find those grocery store swaps, even in the holiday season. So what I have today is I found a rosemary garlic marinated pork roast, and we're going to be doing this in my pressure cooker. So I'm going to get that loaded up first. So this is already pre-seasoned. It came from my grocery store just like this with all of those festive flavors. And I'm just going to build a little bit of a base for them in the bottom of my pressure cooker. So I've got an onion here. I have already gotten started. I'm just going to half that and then quarter each of these halves so they are small enough that they'll cook through, but they're large enough that they'll be obvious in the dish. This is a really rustic version of a family Thanksgiving meal. So I'm going to put these in there. I'm also going to put some carrots in because this is going to have like an aromatic stew quality to it. So these liquids in the bottom are going to be delicious, and so are the veggies. So I'm going to put in about half a bag of my baby carrots. All in all, about a cup and a half, and then about 2 stalks of celery. And I always start my week with some chopped up celery, peppers, and stuff like that. So I've got some that are already broken down somewhat. So I'm going to grab these out and just break them down a little bit more. And then I'm also going to put in some potatoes because they really are going to soak up this delicious broth that's going to happen in the bottom of my pan. So I'm just going to chunk these up into somewhat bite-sized pieces. Nothing incredibly tedious. We are really going for rustic here. And that's the beauty of the holidays. We end up having so many meals that we feel like it's a bad thing to do one that's a little bit different. And that's just not the case. Usually, as long as it's fairly traditional flavors, people are like, oh, that's a welcome little swap. So like last night, we had a Thanksgiving meal with my husband's side of the family here at the house, and my brother-in-law's dad brought a smoked turkey, and they're carnivore. So I was like, I want to do something else that they can eat. I did some turkey meatballs and turkey gravy, and it was a huge hit. So that was a little different, but I didn't sway from the basics, okay? So there's permission to kind of do something different, but not go too terribly far. I'm going to just get my potatoes broken down into some larger chunks, sort of like this, easy peasy to eat. And they'll just do a really good job being a sponge for all the flavor that's going to go in here. Before I put my meat in, I am going to get some heat on my pan because it's going to need to sear. My pressure cooker is set for 40 minutes, and it's going to go and get my roast tender in just that time. But this searing process is going to help lock in the juices and really give that brown food long, slow cooked flavor. So that's why we're searing it first. I'm going to get a little oil in my pan. And I already can hear my veggies getting a little bit of color on them. So I'm going to get a little bit of oil in my pressure cooker and some salt and pepper on top of my veggies. Anytime that you're using veggies as a base for flavor, you don't want to skimp on seasoning them. Yes, the meat is going to offer some flavor, but you really want to give some attention to them because they are part of the deal too, especially when you're using potatoes. Potatoes take a ton of salt, and it seems almost too aggressive, but trust me, it's not. I can't think of a time I have ever oversalted a potato, to be very honest with you. I've oversalted grits, I've oversalted gravies, I've oversalted all kinds of things, but I've never, ever oversalted a potato that I can remember. There's a first time for everything, but I'd probably have to try really, really hard. Okay, so all that is in. And the last thing I'm going to get in for my veggies is some of these green beans. They're just very easy to find this time of year, and they're super festive. And green bean casserole is something that's very traditional at Thanksgiving, but that's something you have so much that I like to do something a little bit different. When I tell you the platter presentation on this at the end of it all is fantastic, it is absolutely gorgeous. Nobody's going to miss that giant bird. So I'm going to get my green beans all in there, and then I'm going to get my roast to searing right here. So I'm just going to take my roast and get it right into the pan, and I want it to have a sizzle as soon as it gets in there, and it absolutely does. Normally, this is where I would have seasoned my meat with salt, pepper, garlic powder, all that stuff. But because it has that marinade already on it, I got to skip that step, and I just have to get some really good color on it, and then we'll be in business to get it into the big pot. Another thing I'm going to put in there is a little bit of chicken stock. You can also use water and a little bit of chicken bouillon or chicken base. That would really give you a good sauce. So when this gets done searing, we're going to get it loaded into the pot, and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so I've flipped my pork. It's browning on the second side, but I do want to talk to you about a couple of logistics while that's going. So a couple of things that I always do, but this is no exception just because it's a holiday meal. I have a garbage bowl here, so I don't have to run to the garbage can all the time. I've also got my chicken stock made, and you absolutely can use chicken stock in a box because I say shortcut, shortcut, shortcut all the time. But around the holidays, I always just make stock in excess, more than I normally would. So I made chicken stock a couple days ago before I even started on my Thanksgiving cooking in a big giant pot. And I used just chicken necks and turkey necks that I had kept in the freezer for all the last 3 to 6 months and just waited until I needed them for Thanksgiving because I knew when it was coming, we would need more stock. So I used those just to make really rich stock with trimmed ends of my onions, some celery, some carrots. Sometimes I put some herbs like parsley or thyme, and I got a really rich stock that way. But absolutely get yourself some stock in the box this time of year too. So what I'm going to do is once my pork roast is totally browned on both sides, I'm going to put it into the Instapot, and then I'm going to deglaze this pan because there's a lot of flavor in the bottom of that pan. So I'm not just going to take this stock and pour it into the Instapot. I'm going to deglaze this pan, get all of that brown bits off the bottom because that's flavor we do not want to waste, and then pour that bit of broth into my Instapot and then get some extra broth in there if I need it. So this is looking good. I'm about to pull it up, and this will tell you when it's ready because if it's sticking, it's not seared enough. So when it's ready, it will let go of the pan and it will let you know it's time to get into the pot. So that got off very easily. I'm going to get it into the pot. And this is a 2.5 pound roast. And if you're going to do that in the oven, that takes about 35 minutes per pound. But this in the Instapot is going to go in just 40. Now my heat is on. I'm going to turn it down a little bit and get some broth in there. Just a couple of cups is all I need. And I'm going to take a wooden spoon and I'm just going to scrape these bits off the bottom. Y'all have heard me say many times, brown food tastes good. So don't waste the browning in the bottom of this pan. This is going to be really a game changer for the flavors in your food. So I'm just going to get all of that off the bottom. And when your pan is hot like this, it really does happen in no time. This is like almost a background secret step if you have a dirty pan you want to clean. But in this case, we're just after flavor. Okay? So I'm getting all those bits up. And then I'm going to get this into my Instapot with all of my pork and my veggies. If you wanted to season your pork and veggies with something like a seasoning blend, I would do so. Like find a chicken seasoning blend or something like that, and you could easily just get that on top of your veggies too instead of just salt and pepper. Then this is going to go on here. All those veggies have already started to smell absolutely amazing. And I'm going to get about another 2 or 3 cups of stock in here. And then we'll be in business. I'm not trying to cover my roast, but I am trying to at least come up to about the top of all of my veggies. Gonna get my lid on and locked, and we're in business. That's gonna be ready in just about 40 minutes. Next thing we're gonna work on is the sides. Okay, it's time to talk sides. Obviously, all of those yummy veggies underneath my pork roast are side number 1, but side number 2 and 3 are just as delicious. I'm going to show you how to do a delicious stuffing that's unstuffed. I've got my oven preheated to 400 degrees, and I've got a whole loaf of just sliced bread that I put in the freezer about a month ago when we just weren't going to eat it. And I thought, this is perfect to get ready for Thanksgiving. You can have the kids tear these up. That's a really good job, just to let the kids sit and do that. I remember doing that as a kid all the time. But if you want to chop them down, you can chop them down. All I need to do is get this a little bit toasted and dried out, so when I'm adding flavors to the pan, they'll be ready. My other side to be coming up is broccoli casserole, and that is a cheesy hit in our house. Think broccoli and a lot of that yummy cheese sauce that you're used to hearing about when you're a kid. So I've got a little bit of my bread going. I'm also going to get some sausage for my stuffing. So I'm going to turn my heat on. I just really wiped out that pan that I seared the pork in, because who wants a bunch of other dishes? We pretty much cleaned that out with the chicken stock anyway. So we're just going to go ahead and heat that pan up. And I've got some Italian sausage. You can use whatever sausage you like in your house. I just probably wouldn't use breakfast sausage or like a kielbasa. I want a loose sausage here. So if you've got a mild, a hot, whatever you like in your house as far as ground sausage goes, that's what I'm using here. And I'm going to toast my bread. It comes in a casing, so I'm going to take it out of the casing when it comes time to get it in the pan in just a second. But my bread is going to be toasting while my sausage is getting a little bit browned off. And then we're going to chop up another onion, and we're going to get some mushrooms in there, and this is just going to be a really delicious unstuffed stuffing. Stuffing is the same as dressing. It's just usually put inside of the turkey or whatever you're using. Sometimes stuffing is even rolled up into like a roulade kind of thing. But in this case, we're doing shortcut style, and we want things to cook evenly and quicker. And sometimes when you cook things with the stuffing stuffed in it, it makes it take longer, and we just don't have time for that. So I'm going to get my bread going in my toaster oven, or not my toaster oven, my oven. I need to use my real oven because, praise God, I finally have one. This kitchen remodel has been so drawn out, and it's been such a blessing to be able to do a lot of my lessons for a year downstairs in my studio kitchen. But having a regular oven up here now has just been such a breath of fresh air. So all this is going in the oven at 400 for just a few minutes to toast and get dried out. And I'm going to get my sausage into my pan. Keep your big bowl, because we're going to need to mix together our stuffing before we put it into the oven again in just a few minutes. So I'm going to score the casings, and then the sausage will just come right out. But you can buy it uncased if you can find it that way. Oftentimes you can just find it already loose the way that I would need it. Just out of the casings it comes, and there you go. We're going to just break this up once it's all in the pan. I love Italian sausage for this because it has such bold flavor. It stands up to the stuffing, all the bread and everything in your dish. Anytime we can do bold flavors, let's do bold flavors. The more seasoning, the better in my department. I always say season like you mean it. And this step, because this sausage is heavily seasoned, is seasoning like you mean it. All right, in you go. I'm going to rinse my hands really quick. And I've got my wooden spoon here from earlier that I'm just going to keep working with. Again, less dishes. We don't want all the dishes that we can possibly get. We want to be able to relax after this meal is over. Thankfully, in my house, we always have a team of folks to help me do the dishes. My big boys and my husband have no problem jumping in the kitchen after they've been fed a good meal and getting in and doing all the dishes for me. So I'm blessed in that department. No complaints here from Mama. Okay, while that's browning, I'm going to chop up an onion. As I always tell you, there are so many ways to shortcut this. You could easily just go ahead and buy the onion pre-chopped in the freezer section. That is one item that I absolutely recommend all people have on hand. It's just too easy to not have some frozen chopped veggies in your freezer for you. And they're not expensive. They're incredibly affordable. And really, these flavors that I'm putting in here are not so far from traditional, because we're still going to use some really good herbs in there, but this is a little bit of a twist on the deep South version of what stuffing is. So I'm going to just chop these down. As always, I'm going to link my knife below for you if you want to get one like this. I always say, especially this time of year, I travel with my knives. Okay, I'm going to our hometown, and I'm going to be cooking in my parents' kitchen for Thanksgiving, and I travel with my knife. So this has a cover, and I absolutely love that it has a cover. But it's also good that it has a cover because my girls are where they're trying to put their hands in the drawers and stuff, and it can stand to be covered up. Okay, so my onion's going to go in with my sausage. And when you have a sharp knife like that, you don't cry nearly as much. When your knife is dull, you break down the onion and have a lot longer time. You're chopping it, and it just takes a lot more of that of the tearful moments that you're trying to avoid when you're working so much harder to get your onion broke down. So get a sharp knife or sharpen your knife. And if you've had your knife for more than about 5 years, it's probably time for a new one. So I'm just breaking this up with my spoon, getting that onion all in this good sausage fat. This is a pork sausage. It smells amazing in here. My Instapot is counting down. I love having a pressure cooker on hand because it really takes almost anything that's a slow, long cook process and brings it back into the realm of possibility to get it on the table on a busy night. I mean, I'm making this Thanksgiving meal in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day. Sometimes you need all the help you can get. And I just did one last night. Okay, so that's going. That smells amazing. So for this, we're going to also use a little bit of herbs. Like I said, so I'm going to get some thyme. And you can absolutely use dried thyme here. And I'm going to get some parsley. And we're just going to use these. I'm going to garnish with parsley later, but we're going to just use these to give a good herby flavor base to our stuffing, our unstuffed stuffing. So you get thyme leaves like this. This is how you're going to strip them. You're going to take them by the top, and you're just going to pull the little leaves down right onto your cutting board, and the little top just pops right off. I'll show you again. So you'll have your little stem. Here's a tiny one. And sometimes the stems are so tender that you could just chop up the little baby ones. But when you've got the woodier ones, you always need to strip the leaves. And down you go. Thyme is one of those things that pairs so well with all of the fall flavors, whether it be turkey, sausage, stuffing, butternut squash, whatever you're using during this fall season. Thyme is a go-to herb for me. People like rosemary too. I've got rosemary on my pork roast. You can also use fennel to back up some of the flavor in the sausage. That would be a good choice. But for me, I love to use the thyme and the parsley. Those are the two I keep on hand the most. I'm just going to pass through these, keeping my fingers curled under. And you notice my knife doesn't come up off the board when I'm chopping. It's staying on the board, and I'm using a rocking motion. I tell people like the motion of the ocean, like a ship on the sea. You just rock right through those herbs. And keeping your hand here helps stabilize the blade too. All right, those are good. Nice. Now I'm going to check on my sausage, get my heat turned up a little bit more since they're all happy in the pan together here. And on this part of the process, yes, we are cooking the sausage through. But as always, I tell you, we're going for a browning. We want the brown food tastes good. My oven's telling me it's hot enough. I'm getting used to all the new sounds of these appliances. And I hear a beep sometimes, and I'm like, what's beeping at me? Oh, that's that appliance I told to come on, and it's saying, I did your job. I did what you asked me to. I have one oven sings to me downstairs. It sings when it's done. I have a washing machine that sings to me when it's done. All my appliances have noises they make. I've just got to learn what these new ones are going to do. The other day, I left the refrigerator open and didn't even know it because it was open like just like that. And it started singing to me, and I'm like, what is that sound? Come back. Close the door. Okay, that's going to go for another minute. And while my bread's toasted, I'm going to gather a few more things to finish up this dressing, and I'll be right back. Okay, so my bread is nice and toasty. We're going to get it out. My sausage is very well browned. See, we got some good toast on there. Let me close the oven real quick. And then I'm going to go ahead, now that my sausage is good and brown, I'm going to get a little bit of mushrooms in with this. This is a sausage and mushroom stuffing. You caught me a while ago, I'm sure. I said dressing. It's a habit. I'm a Southern girl. Stuffing is going to get a little bit of mushrooms. This is a play on a dish that a girlfriend made for me. I loved it so much. It was a sausage and mushroom wild rice casserole. She made it for me back when I had just had one of my boys. I can't remember. We had gone to hair school together, and we have two boys. My youngest son and her youngest son are only like a year apart. So must have been when the youngest one was born that she made me this wonderful casserole. And I thought, I'm going to take that wild rice casserole that she made and make it into a stuffing recipe. So I'm going to get some mushrooms, and these are drained. I'm going to make sure all the liquid's off. And I'm going to chop these just a little bit. Not a ton. They're already sliced. And you could absolutely use fresh mushrooms here. But I'm telling you, a shortcut is a shortcut. When I've got these on hand all the time, I've got these on hand for pizza. I use them in beef stroganoff in a pinch if we want beef stroganoff and I haven't been to the grocery store to get fresh. These are on hand all the time. I'm going to get my mushrooms in. And our sausage is pretty salty, but we are going to salt this a little bit at this point. The reason I didn't put the mushrooms in at the beginning is because that would have slowed down the browning process almost completely because of the moisture in the mushrooms. So we always want to brown whatever we have in our pan, meat-wise and veggie-wise, before we add in our mushrooms, because they do add moisture. And if you're adding fresh mushrooms, they don't release their moisture until you put in salt. So put them in and brown your mushrooms first before you start to season them with salt, and you'll find that they get browned faster and more beautifully for you. Okay, so those are in. I'm going to turn my heat way down while I get my bread cubes into my big bowl here. Now my bowl, I used it to hold my bread to break it up. It's going to be using the same bowl again for my stuffing to get mixed together, because we don't want to do those extra dishes, do we? No, it just held bread before. It's holding bread again. Let's be real, friends. I'm helping you out. No pressure to have the most dishes you can possibly get. Somehow I wind up there anyway. My sink is so deep. It is so big. I don't even have a divider in the middle. It's a chef's sink, I guess is what they would call it. And I have mountains of dishes all the time. And thank goodness I have some boys that help me with that. Because Lord knows I don't know what I'd do if I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to get my herbs into, I'm going to move this over here. All this counter space, I need to use it because I'm not used to having it. Not in my studio anyway. All right, I'm going to get my herbs in here. Delicious. Parsley and thyme is really going to just liven up the dish a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to get in all of my meat mixture, the sausage, the onions, the mushrooms. It smells amazing. I'm going to get a spoon to get the rest of that out. And you'll notice that there is not a lot of brown on the bottom of the pan. There's one little spot left. I should have probably broken him up. But those onions and the mushrooms, when they released their moisture, they helped all those brown bits get off of the bottom, just like if we had deglazed with a stock or something. Well, that kind of jumped out of the pan at me. Get back in there, guys. Okay, this is a big bowl, but maybe not big enough, but wait. What we're going to do is I'm going to put some stock over this, and the stock's going to settle that down a little bit. I'm going to start by using about a cup and a half, and let it get worked in there, and then probably going to add more. It's probably more like 2 cups. Always, always with stuffings and dressing, you're going to end up needing more stock than you think. There it goes. It just shrunk right down in no time. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir all of this up. And because this is unstuffed stuffing, I'm going to put it in a pan and bake it in the oven for about 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes, just until it's really golden on top, and it's going to be absolutely delicious. Okay, I'm going to go in with another couple of cups now that I have it shrunk good and down. And then there's a few other things I have to add in here. Because it is Thanksgiving, I'm going to add in a little bit of poultry seasoning. And really the ingredient in that's going to be the big hit is the sage. You want a little bit of that sage flavor in here. You can sometimes even find sausage that has sage in it. That's a great choice for this time of year. And now all of a sudden it smells just like Thanksgiving. Just like that. Okay. I'm going to grab an egg real quick. Egg is my binder here. That's what keeps everybody together and having a good time. So that's why we do egg. And if you got a pretty large egg, you might can do one, but if they're smaller or medium, I would do two. I think this is a good size one. We'll see. I can tell how well it's bound together by the way it looks after I stir it up. Oh yeah. All right. Now we're in business. Get some salt in here because we do have a lot of bread. We got to bring some more seasoning. There was obviously salt in the stock, but nowhere near enough. We're going to get some pepper in here. And we layer the flavors, okay? Remember we salted and we peppered our veggies and our sausage in the pan? Well, we had to take a step to do that again because we added some more stuff and we have to build the flavor as it goes. Now, casserole dish and we'll be in business. All right, I'm going to get this into the pan and then we're going to get this baked off at 400 degrees. In you go. Get a little bit of the spoon so we can have some help here. It's amazing I actually have any casserole dishes left. That's a testament to how many dishes I actually have, because literally at 9 o'clock last night, we were cleaning up from our family Thanksgiving dinner, and my husband was like, I think we just need to put some things in the refrigerator and go to bed. So I got quite a few casserole dishes in the refrigerator right now that are half full from things we didn't quite finish. Okay, in it goes at 400 degrees, and then we're off to working on broccoli casserole. Now, what I have for broccoli casserole is going to show you the shortcut route. We have pre-cooked rice. I have got some chopped steamed broccoli, and then we're making a cheese sauce, and that's really all we have to have. So this is where a lot of your shortcuts come into play. Okay, let's make some broccoli cheese casserole. I've got some steamed broccoli here. Like I said, you could absolutely buy it in the freezer. And I also have a couple of cups of cooked rice. So those are going to be my two main components for my casserole. But the star of the show is my cheese sauce. So I'm going to get my heat on my pan. And I'm going to get some butter going. And this is super fast, y'all. You're not going to believe how quick this is. We are going to put about 3 tablespoons of butter in our pan, get that started to melt. And then we're going to add in some heavy cream. It is what it is. Trust me on this. We're going to add in some heavy cream and some delicious cheese. So while that's happening, my broccoli is a little bit bigger than I want it to be. So I'm going to get that chopped down. Just a little bit. It's going to break down even more while we're mixing this together, but I don't want huge pieces of broccoli. This is more about the mixture being perfect in your mouth. So I've got my big mixing bowl here. I'm just going to give my broccoli a little bit of a rough chop. This is a good time to use those stems in here because when they're all covered in the cheese sauce, you're not going to miss a beat biting down on a cheesy covered broccoli stalk. They have plenty of nutrition in them. So use all of the broccoli for this. This is the equivalent of like one bunch. This was one bunch, one head of broccoli, but you would be landing exactly in the same place if you just got a bag of frozen broccoli chopped. Throw it in the microwave, steam it off, you're in business. So broccoli going into the bowl. Everybody into the bowl. Nobody overboard, please. Thank you. Like they listen. Okay, and this was 1.5 cups of dry rice that I cooked in 3 cups of water. That's the 2-to-1 ratio. So I've got some rice here going in. And broccoli and rice casserole is super traditional in our family. It's maybe not always a Thanksgiving meal necessarily, but it is something that we have eaten so much throughout my childhood. And honestly, like it's one of those, if I go to a mom and pop restaurant, I'm going to order it. So I've got that started to get mixed together. My rice was salted in the pot, so I cooked it in salted water with butter in it, so it's got some seasoning on it. But we also need to add a little bit more seasoning here, so I'm going to get some salt on top of here. This is going to be about a teaspoon, a couple of sprinkles of kosher salt. I'm going to get a half a teaspoon of pepper, a couple little pinches. And then I'm going to bump up the flavor with a couple of other things. I'm going to go with a teaspoon of seasoning salt as well. Really want to season that rice later. We have garlic powder, teaspoon of that. There we go. And then we're going to just get that started to get tossed together. My butter's almost completely melted, so I'm going to get a couple of other things in the pan. And then we're going to build a cheese sauce. Now, the cheese sauce is one of those things that is a binder for this. Not only is it a flavor bomb, but it's a binder in our casserole. So it's going to keep this all glued together and make it really delicious. Okay, so I'm going to go in with two things. Like I said, this is partially shortcut. Some cream of chicken soup. I may need a spoon to help me get that out. And this is going to give us our really good chicken roasted almost flavor. Really bump up the flavor of our sauce. And then about 2 cups of cream. You can use half and half here. I wouldn't go to milk. That's a little bit too thin, but you absolutely could use half and half if you had that on hand. Or evaporated milk even would probably be better than milk in this case. And I'm going to just start stirring this together. And I've got some cheese shredded up. I've got 6 ounces of Monterey Jack, and I've got 4 ounces of sharp cheddar that I grated. I'm going to need to trade that for a whisk. That spoon's not hitting on much. I might be here all day long trying to do that, and we don't have time for that. Let's get this mixed together. There we go. There we go. Now, here's the thing about building this cheese sauce. We are here to combine these things together and melt cheese. We do not want this to come to a heavy simmer because that will make our cream separate and get grainy. We don't want that. We are just here to make it nice and saucy. All right. Now, here's a pro tip too. I love to grate my cheese when I do it by hand, which I often do. I just often do it ahead of time on some parchment paper. That way, it just gets into your pan and you're not making multiple trips. Look at that. And all you have is your cheese in there. So like I said, 4 ounces, about 4 ounces of sharp cheddar, about 6 ounces of Monterey Jack. I'm going to get my spoon here now that everything's worked in. And we're just melting cheese at this point. We do not want to boil this by any means. And this cheese sauce is going to make everybody who doesn't like to have their veggies like their veggies. And that's the golden part of a glorious liquid cheese sauce. You could eat anything topped with this. I say that. We have our oldest child. I would say our 2 oldest, our oldest girl and our oldest boy, which there's 16 years between our oldest girl and our oldest boy. They both have that first child syndrome thing. They have their certain things they're set in their ways. But both of my firstborns are not picky eaters at all. Out of the gate, our son, when he was born, he liked almost everything. He would eat olives, he would eat collard greens, you name it. He was fine with it. So one day I had made broccoli casserole, and he was probably about 2. And we had a rule. I mean, you grow up in the South. If your mama makes it, that's what you eat for dinner. You don't have a plan B. This is what else you could choose. Mama made it. This is dinner. That's the way we grew up. So I put the broccoli and cheese casserole on my not picky child's plate. And he was like, no, Mama. And I was like, what's happening? Well, I said, you just need to keep trying. Lo and behold, he ended up literally gagging. He was like, no, Mama. And I was like, okay, well, we're not doing this. Now that he's grown, no, he's not picky, but he's a texture person, and he loves broccoli now. But back then, it was just too much for him. So I have learned now that some things we just don't need to force. But this is a recipe that will make your children who maybe don't like the taste or look of broccoli, but are fine with the texture, love it. All right, my cheese is almost totally melted. That is glorious. Absolutely glorious. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder to this and a little bit of seasoning salt to this because always building flavor. Just about a teaspoon of each. Teaspoon. Because something about a lot of heavy cream really does need to combat that with some more seasonings. And then about a teaspoon of garlic. And it's going to go over our broccoli and our rice. And it's going to bring the dish home. I can turn my heat off. And look at this. I mean, this is going to be a waterfall of cheesy goodness. That looks amazing. Get that all in there. Don't waste any of that. I might have to come back later just and dip some chips in that or something. I say it all the time. Perks of the job. I'm the one that's in here doing the work. I get to do the tasting. Okay, that's good and mixed together. Get in there with my mussels. I was mixing together cookie dough yesterday, and my baby child was in here with me, and she's like, Mama, I'm tired. And she was wanting to help, and she was whisking with me. And lo and behold, next thing I know, I've got the whisk in my hand, and she just is like kind of holding on to my bracelet for dear life, like, I'm here for you, Mama. It was funny. She's like, I want to be part of this, but I'm tired. Okay, with my casserole dish, I'm going to get some cooking spray because we don't want this to be sticking. And again, my oven's at 400 degrees. My stuffing's in there, and it smells absolutely amazing. I'm going to get my casserole into this pan. Y'all, Lord have mercy. Probably could call this cheesy rice and leave the word broccoli out of it. And nobody would say anything about having to eat their broccoli because they probably wouldn't even notice, really, with all that cheese in there. Oh my goodness. Okay, one final step. We've got to bake this in the oven. And then when it's almost done, about 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes to go, I'm going to top it with some yummy Ritz crackers and get a little crisp crust. So in the oven it'll go. I'll be right back. 10 minutes left on that pressure cooker. It sounds like there's a train in my kitchen, but there's not. That's my pressure cooker, my Instapot releasing the pressure because it's almost time to eat. Now, the last thing that I have to do, I have to pull out my broccoli casserole, which is beautiful and bubbly, by the way. Everybody in there is absolutely covered in that cheese. My dressing's coming out next. And I'm going to take some Ritz crackers, and you can use any of these that you have on hand, but I love the roasted vegetable ones because they already have so much flavor. I'm just going to crack these in the pack and just get them all over the top of my broccoli casserole. And this is just that nostalgic expectation for me of what you get on top of a casserole. You got to do it. You could also use the fried onions that are popular for green bean casserole this time of year. That would be good. You could do a combination of those. I've actually gone to family gatherings before and had things like this crushed up with crushed up potato chips on top. To each his own. These are absolutely perfect though because they're very buttery and you don't have to add anything to them, and they're pre-seasoned that roasted vegetable flavor. So I love that. These are only going to take a few minutes in the oven while I'm getting everything else just finished up and ready to go. So this goes for about maybe 5 minutes. And then I'm going to get out my stuffing. This stuffing is more traditional to not the South necessarily, but to be inside of a bird. But we unstuffed it today, and it smells absolutely delicious. I could sit here and eat that with a fork. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Now, the pressure is almost totally released, and this is the logistics of using a pressure cooker. It's not going to let you in there until the pressure is completely released. So I'm going to make sure everything's out, and it'll go open when it's ready. So another thing about using a pressure cooker is when it's time to release the pressure, you always want to scoot it away from your cabinets or whatever so that steam doesn't actually damage your cabinets. That could happen. And almost all the pressure is gone. I hear it about to be done. So it should release. And here we go. The moment of truth. The star of our Thanksgiving show is just right inside there, patiently waiting to be unveiled. Oh, and it smells delicious. Absolutely delicious. So I've got me a big platter here. And I'm going to pull out my pork and put him on the center. I can tell he's tender because the minute I touch him with my tongs, he starts to shred a little bit. Another way to test it is you can use the side of a fork, but I can just go ahead and tell. See how that's just shredding apart? We're ready. And then I'm going to get in here and get some of these beautiful veggies for my plate. And I want some of this to, this is going to rest for a few minutes. I'm not going to do any of the shredding of it until it's actually time to eat. But I'm going to get some of this just beautiful veg on my platter. Then I'm going to show you how I dress it up. You want some of the juice because the juice from your pork is absolutely packed with flavor. Your potatoes have soaked up that flavor. I mean, absolutely amazing. See? And there's tons more in there that we can just serve alongside. And then because it's Thanksgiving and I like to be special at Thanksgiving, I'm going to put some parsley over the top to put this on the buffet. Just like that. If that doesn't scream holiday, I don't know what does. So we've got our stuffing, and our juice from our pork is going to be delicious if it runs into that stuffing. So I'm going to make sure I serve this on the buffet as well. And I'm going to show you a picture of what the buffet looks like at the end. And then I'm going to check on my casserole, and it actually already looks great. You just want those crackers to have a good toast on them, and it comes out in no time at all. Look at that. Delicious. This is my Thanksgiving meal that I'm going to serve to the lovely folks that help me every day or every week in Mama Witten's kitchen. I'm going to put it out on our buffet, and I'll give a little shot of what it looks like at the end. If you want to join me in Mama Witten's kitchen, I teach a recorded lesson like this every week, and it gets loaded into my cooking school. But I also teach live classes every Friday, and that's a virtual cooking school that you can be part of for only $67 a month. And you have the archives of every lesson that I ever teach, as well as devotional lessons with me. So I'm going to put the link for that below, and I'll also link some of my favorite things like my pots and pans that I recommend, as well as my knife that I use. Happy Thanksgiving, and stay tuned for a few minutes for the last shot of the buffet, all said and done. See you guys next time. Happy cooking, y'all. Somebody already snuck a taste. All right.